Hi, and you're very welcome to the Leitrim GAA podcast with myself, Breifne Earley, here on finalwhistle.ie. I'm joined once again by one of our group of co-hosts. This week it is Derek Kelleher, of course, former Leitrim player and Gortletteragh clubman. And Derek, you're welcome back. It's been a while since we've had you on the show because we had a little bit of a gap in the schedule. But how have you been? How have you been enjoying the return to championship action?
Oh, sure, it's great, and it's great to be back on the program, Breifne. The championship action is starting to heat up, of course. With I suppose inter-county stuff is heading for an All-Ireland final with lots of controversy about COVID, and the club scene there doesn't seem to be that terrible much of an impact on clubs. I think everybody has been able to fulfil their fixtures, so they're doing their training the way that they're supposed to be training. They're acting the way they're supposed to be acting, and everything seems to be going well. And there's some fair, hefty results coming out now, big score lines, and I suppose that's what you like to see. That's what people go to games to see the skill and to see scores.
Absolutely. We'll talk about some of those hefty scorelines and, of course, a rake of goals and maybe even a yellow, a red and a black card between our own two clubs as we speak here on Sunday evening. The game that was played last night, Gortletteragh and Leitrim Gaels, of course, meeting in the championships last night. We'll talk about all the games in the intermediate and senior championship over the course of the rest of the show. But before we get too deep into it, I just want to remind people about our championship program. It's here. It is 200 pages, 196 pages, featuring every single player in the county in the club championships from all the clubs, male and female. It's €15. It's in shops all over the county. You can buy it on finalwhistle.ie, and it is the easiest and the best way if you, as a listener or a viewer of these shows, want to support what we're doing here. I know you're going to love it. If you love the show, you're going to absolutely love it. Have you seen it yet, Derek? No pressure.
Yeah.
Aidan hadn't last week. He's off the road. He's gone. See you. Bye.
Oh yeah, no, I bought it and I said give the copy to my father, and I said go through that now and make sure that I'm in it. He hasn't come back. He hasn't come back to me.
You should have bought him a copy, Derek. Is all I'm saying. But anyway, we let you away. We let you away with it. No, it's a fantastic production to the team that's behind it that helped me put it together. Philip Rooney, our editor, Dan Moran, our typesetter, Con Doyle, who won the county minors from this year, who helped gather all the information, and then David Regan, who took all the drone photos that are in it, a player himself in the championship with Leitrim Gaels at the moment, in action last night, even scored a couple of points. We'll talk about that in just a few moments. Anything else over the last couple of weeks that we need to catch up on, Derek? You haven't done anything mad?
No, look at sure. I suppose it was the holiday month. August is always the holiday month, so people are trying to get away. Lots of good weather in between the showers. So we got getting out doing a bit of exercise and keeping the head going. You know, that's all that's going on at the minute.
It's very, very important, of course. We're going to hear from some of the reaction from around the grounds over the weekend's games. Of course, you could have listened to any of the games on Leitrim GAA radio, which you can get at leitrimgaa.ie and also on finalwhistle.ie/live. But first of all, maybe let's get straight into the action of the weekend and a full set of fixtures across the two championships, senior and intermediate, as well as some junior B and C action, which got underway this week. All the results at the bottom of the screen, of course. If you're listening to us, we'll go through them for you now, but we might as well start at that game in Gortletteragh last night. A bit of a surprise. Gortletteragh, many people's favourites to be at the bottom of the table. Leitrim Gaels had been running well, but the form book thrown out the window, and Gortletteragh emerged with a win at the end of it all. The return of Jack Heston, of course. I know you weren't at the game, Derek. You were trying to put a few other things, but you've heard some feedback back from within the club. What's the thoughts? Must be delighted.
Absolutely delighted to get the win. I suppose the way that the win has worked, that we're still bottom of the table because as the head-to-head with Melvin Gaels, our score difference is better, which is a bit unfortunate because you'd like to pull yourself off the bottom when you get a win against a team that would have been hot favourites going in. For Leitrim Gaels to score 118 and still lose a game it's unusual to say the least. Like, because you'd be happy enough coming away with that sort of scoreline, but like we have the veteran goalkeeper and full forward for Gortletteragh, Colin McCrann, scoring goals. He has the goals have won us every game. We're not winning games with points, so like we go into a game against Carrick and Shannon, St Mary's, and we need to be getting scores on the scoreboard. Like the return of Jack was a serious boost. I didn't know whether it was that we were looking at maybe Leitrim Gaels been too strong, but he survived the game and he's all right. So look, going into a St. Mary's game, you need him in flying form. There'll be St. Mary's will look at Cathal McCran to try and quench. McCall is strong, he's physical, and he can score. He can score goals. Like he has 4 or 5 goals already this year, and you could go 2 or 3 years without scoring. And if people look back on the results, like we said, our Division 2 league final, the intermediate county final, and the goals of the weekend, the games were winning by goals. So maybe Paul McGuire is the Gortletteragh manager is the prodigy that's bringing back a little bit of oomph into the football and going for goals rather than just taking points and the goals will come attitude,
Yeah, I'm sure he'll be really happy that you've explained that to St. Mary's as well. Not that they probably needed it. Dennis Scotland's been around a while, himself and Fergal Reynolds, Anthony Conway, Damien Butler down there in St. Mary's. They know exactly what they're doing, as we've seen over the last couple of weeks as well. In terms of the actual game, though, maybe it's a good chance to hear from Paul McGuire and hear what he thought about the clash. After the game, he caught up with our reporter, Deniese O'Flaherty. Here's what he had to say about it.
Paul, I tell you, you made hard work of it. 6 points down, but some second half performance.
Yeah, look, we got in at half time and we regrouped and we had a chat and we knew we were better than what we were doing. We were probably used to going 6 points down, and we did the same in what you got a manner last week. We could have brought it back to 2 points at half time and we didn't do it. We missed the penalty, but look at today, the lads stood up today and we were real leaders on the pitch today. Some of the boys there, are brilliant. Actually, when you mention leaders, Cathal McCran won a ball there, actually for the second goal just before half time that he shouldn't have won. And that brought you back into the game. Yeah, and that's when we spoke about that 50-50 ball. Like we had a couple in the first half that we should have won, and we didn't win. And I was saying at half time to the lads, if that ball is there 50-50, boys, if we don't win it, they're not going to win it. They're going to know they're after getting into a tackle. Do you know what I mean? And look, after the second half, we done that. We won them 50-50 balls, and we took our scores. Derrick Keller's goal, that's the highlight of the game. Probably the way he pegged himself through the goals to get on the end of it. You know what I mean? That's the determination and the belief the boys have got on themselves at the minute. Some of the moves, in all fairness, like for the goal was a Cathal McCran into Jack Heston. Over, yeah. It was just. Is that something that you done on the training? Yeah, look, we wouldn't be. Look, we'd work on that. You know what I mean? Every coach would work on that ball in and trying to get somebody in the back post to tap it in. But when it comes off, it's brilliant. But if it doesn't, it's another thing. The thing about it is as well, as the game went on and you started building up a bit of a lead, your defence just, as you said about the 50-50 ball, there was balls there that they were breaking down, and there was someone there from Gortletteragh to pick them up. Yeah, they came in. Jared Campbell was immense there. Kevin McGrath as well. Cathal went back in as when they got their man sent off in the last 5 minutes. He went back in there and he steadied up the ship and he broke some serious ball there. And look, we had a man there ready to pick it up and get out with it. The last kick of the game, Colin Duffy came out, got down to Jack. Was wide open. He was stuck over us. We could have had another goal chance there. So look, we're going all right. You mixed the team around before the start of the game. You've got players there that can play. They're very versatile. Yeah, we've got very versatile players. Like Niall Woods will be a midfielder. We moved him centre back because we're missing James Campbell, and James is a huge loss to us. Colin Duffy, you can move him around as well. Oisin Niblock, David Mulvey, very versatile players, and any lad is happy to play. Whatever gets a jersey, he'll play anywhere. Do you know what I mean? And that's the best about this team. I suppose for yourself, disappointed in the last 2 games, but you've had glimpses. And, people could know that there was something there with that Gortletteragh team. It was just getting a 60-plus minute performance. Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. We played Melbourne here in the first game, we know we lost by 5 points, but it wasn't a 5-point loss, no. And we were missing, missing James Campbell, and then we lost Eamon Reynolds and David Mulvey in the first 10 minutes, and it upsets things, and probably missed too many goal chances. The same thing in Manor, we're still missing Jack, and we missed James Campbell was back, but off injured, and lost Keoghan McGovern, another big loss, and we missed 2-6 in the first half again in Manor, and you can't do that at senior level. And as I said to the boys, you won't get as much time on the ball at senior as you do at intermediate, and you have to move that ball at pace, and we worked on it during the week, and looking at the pit off today for us. Well, that's it. You live to fight another day. Next weekend is huge. Huge game for Gortletteragh, so it is. And you're playing the last year's finalists in St. Mary's and top of the group, so they're at the minute, and and they'll want to stay there top of the group, and they'll be nothing easy going over to Carrick next Friday evening. The thing about it is, at least you have this win going into that game. I can see
the dressing room, you know, the buzz around and what a win means going in there, because you now know it's in your hands.
Yeah, look, it means nothing this evening if we don't back it up next Friday evening, and I'd be hoping that the lads will have that belief in themselves that we can get something out next Friday evening.
Moving around from the grounds in the senior championship as well. We'll start at the top of the county, work our way down. Melvin Gaels, the venue, Kinlaw, of course, forced St Mary's to take their chances with trying to secure the best possible finish in that group. They're probably the favourites to top the group now at this stage. 2 wins and a draw from their opening 3 games after they brushed aside Melvin Gaels. 1-12 to 1-3, the final score in Kinlaw. Dennis Conlon, we've mentioned him already on the show, but he'll be quite happy with that result, and Carrick safely and comfortably through in a pretty good seeding now for the quarter-final draw.
Yeah, Carrick will be there. I presume that they have been aiming from the start of the year at trying to get semi-final status at least, and then take it from there. They have, I suppose, with underage in Leitrim, they've had a considerable amount of players involved with all from the senior panel the whole way down to, we'll say, the under-17 panel. So, like, that has to start showing. And Melvin Gaels, look, they got the result against Gortletteragh at the start, but to only score 1-3 it leaves, you don't know where to turn. You'd be looking for what's the issues here, but there seems to be quite a few issues. Now, Carrick have some excellent defenders, so if they're the type of game that they're playing, if they're going to be closing down the space inside and you can't get the shots off, so be it. Like, and that's the scoreline that you will have. So look at Carrick, they'll be through now at this stage. So they'll be happy enough to get all their training done, get it a little bit sharper to see, because you won't know yet to see who to be playing in a quarter final.
Of course, Melvin Gaels, that is their 4th game of the competition, which does mean the highest they could possibly finish is where they sit at the moment, 4th in the table. Everyone else with more than the 2 points they have, bar Gortletteragh. Gortletteragh need a result against Carrick to push them out of that head-to-head equation with Melvin Gaels. That's why they're currently bottom of the table. So they'll be hoping for some sort of result. Can they take points off Carrick? Is that realistic? Carrick have been very impressive so far.
Yeah, but of course they can. They can take points off anybody in the county, and it was kind of shown at the weekend. Because even
spoken like a true Gortletteragh man.
Yeah. Goals win games, and we are on fire. Do you know what I mean? Well, we mightn't be on fire against Carrick, or maybe we will be, but I don't think there's going to be any fear, because the Leitrim Gaels, like with the results that we were seeing, and for the last year or two with Leitrim Gaels, like, they were going in hot favourites, the same as Carrick. I put the two of them at the same level. Like, Carrick don't need to win the game. Gortletteragh need to win the game or get a result out of it. So there might be a few changes in the camp, a few new players in, maybe players been rested that have semi-injured. You don't know. So it'll be in the melting pot. And look at Gortletteragh shown at the weekend. They were able to do it. They've come back. I suppose it was hard winning an intermediate championship, the following week winning a league, and all that excitement and relief and celebrating to try and get back to business, you know, and they are back in business now. And some of the players that have been around for a number of years are actually playing much better than they did when they were younger. Like, they're hitting their late 20s, early 30s. And I think the realization is kicking in that, well, we have a year or two left. We either do it or we're as well leave it to the younger lads if we're not able, you know. Yeah,
and I suppose looking at their, competitors for that final quarterfinal spot in that division, obviously one team make the quarterfinals, one team will miss out and end up in the relegation playoff. That will be against Allen Gaels, but more on that very shortly. Melvin Gaels, they're very much a team in transition. It's James Phelan's 3rd season, but they've lost a lot of players. They've been unlucky with availability of players. Dara Rudy missed this weekend. Killian McGlone played his first game, having missed the first 2 weeks. We've spoken ad nauseum, and we've given Aidan a good slagging on the show about the fact that Emlyn Mulligan left the club and went into St Mary's. Obviously, there's no poaching involved there. He just lives there now. But there's a lot of that kind of I wouldn't say negativity, but just obstacles that have been thrown into James Phelan's path this year. It doesn't look like they're in the best shape to survive, even if they do get out of this group and into a quarterfinal. Can you see them mounting a challenge if they were to get that 4th spot in the table?
Yeah, well, look, it just depends. Well, I'd be hoping that they'll be in a relegation final from the Gortletteragh point of view, do you know? But if you take my Gortletteragh hat off, Melvin Gales they're always dangerous. Like the group stages, they're slow starters. Like James knows his stuff. They went a number of years ago. They won an intermediate championship, and the following year they won a senior championship. They're capable of greatness, but they're still capable of imploding at the same time. So it's always touch and go with them. But into a quarter final, any team that would be meeting them in a quarter final and that would take them for granted, they could be signing their own death warrant, you know.
Yeah, of course, Dara Rooney and Caolan Clancy have been the top two performers for them. They've scored virtually everything. They've scored 30 points for them between them this year. Once 14 for Dara, 13 points for Caolan Clancy. The next highest scorer in the competition so far. That is, to be fair, without this week's statistics, they haven't gone in yet, is 2 points. So really, they're very reliant on one or two players.
I'm here with Dennis Connerton, experienced in Mary's Carrick Channel manager. You're very happy with the performance there this evening.
The goal seemed to knock us back at that stage of the game. Like we possibly should have had a score one end, and they broke and scored a goal down the other end, and that seemed to unsettle our guys a wee bit.
Yeah, that's one thing we picked up on, that St Mary's definitely could have had another couple of goals, and definitely we thought went easy on Melvin Gales in that second half.
Yeah.
From a Melvin Gales perspective, we were happy, but a couple of black cards as well during that game.
It was
your thoughts on those?
A little bit disjointed, like they are black cards, and you have to accept that. But it was a very start game tonight. You know, the black cards, they get you, knock you out of your rhythm. Then Melvin Gales a couple of sendings off, and I think it confused us more than it confused Melvin Gales.
Yeah. Pushing forward now for the quarterfinals, you'd be hoping to go one better than last year.
Yeah, well, if we could even get back to a final, we'd be very happy, but there's a long way to go.
Yeah.
You know, there's 4 hours football left in the Leitrim Championship, and it's very competitive. You know, it's our group has been a tough group to come through, and that's all I'm looking at.
Yeah, we have some very good young players there coming through, like Paul Keeney, O'Connell, young Diffley there. He caused havoc there in the Melvin Gales defence in the first half. You'd be pleased with that?
Yeah, once those players keep maturing and keep learning, that's the important thing in football, because if you can't continue to develop and continue to learn, you're really wasting your time in this game.
Brilliant. Thanks a million, Dennis, for your time. Best luck in the rest of the
championship. Guys.
When it comes to a playoff, Allen Gales confirmed their spot. They were beaten at the weekend. They travelled to Ballinaglera. Ballinaglera made fairly light work of that particular clash. I think the final score, I don't have it to hand, it was 420 to 1-7, I think, the final score there. Very disappointing season for Allen Gales so far. They've struggled with injury again, a couple of broken arms, a couple of other people kind of been unavailable longer term, and really it's been a poison chalice from Martin McGowan. He's gone in there, but he's gone in with the view to it being a longer term project. We had him on the show last week, but nothing's gone right for them.
No, well, look, it's hard. We said the likes of James Flynn. James is around a long time, and he's one of the main players for Allen Gales. Do you know? There's quite a few more. I haven't seen that lift of youth, that 3 to 4 players coming from minor every year. That after your 5 or 6 years, you have a new team. They don't seem to have them coming. I don't know whether they're in the country. You'd assume that they are in the country, because nearly every Irish person wanted to be in Ireland last year, you know.
The 2 Mulveys, I think, are in Canada, to be fair. Thomas and Brian Mulvey are out of the country, but there are others coming back, and whether enough will come back and enough will be available for that playoff, whether it's Melvin Gales or Gortletteragh they face, I would worry for Allen Gales. Now, we spoke last week to Martin, and we asked him about the potential for maybe a clean broom or sweep out everybody and start fresh in intermediate level next year. And I personally think that's a good thing for some clubs sometimes. You talked about Melvin Gales coming back straight up, winning an intermediate, and the good feel-good factor that brought to the club pushed them on to win a senior championship. Even Gortletter's result last night, it's pushed them on with the last couple of weeks. I think it will be actually a good thing for Allen Gales, but I suppose they say they will want to stay at senior status. I think it's going to be a little bit past them. Thoughts on that? Do you think they can stay up?
Look at if they're in the relegation final, and I have to keep it open with the Gortletteragh hat on here, okay?
That Gortletteragh hat, I think it's actually a tattoo. It's just there. You're not going to get rid of it.
Yeah, in behind the ears, just in behind the ears. Look at it. It's a hard one if they're not getting the scores on the board and the physicality isn't there. But the only thing is, I know when you said it, Breifne, about like sometimes it's a good thing. Gortletteragh were relegated now this is going back 15 years. It took us 8 years to get back to senior level. So you're not guaranteed. The likes of, like we say, Anna Duff are down there quite a while. Like, it's not a thing that's the same teams are getting up and down. You have to be at the top of your game to win an intermediate championship. And if you were at that level, you could possibly hit a semi-final of a senior championship. Do you know what I mean? So there's not much between, like, to stay up. Survival is it works wonders. It gives players the chance to play at a higher level, to realize it. Because when you start, if young players are coming into intermediate and there's some of the teams that are weaker, they don't understand and they take it for granted that this is the pace of the game I'm playing. But it's not actually, like, you're running at 80%. You're not running at 100% like you are in senior football. So the minute you get in and you get the hard hit and you're to the pin of your collar and exhausted after games, you know what football is all about. And it brings on more players. Like, if you had a few more teams in senior, it might bring on the thing for a bigger pool of possible county footballers at some stage. But look, it's hard with the times that we're in, to have too many senior teams. And then there is a big gap between, we'd say, the top 7 or 8 and the next 4. You're talking about a big gap.
Absolutely. In terms of the final game in the senior championship at the weekend, the one I actually happened to be at on Saturday evening was between Fianna St. Collins and Ahowillan, and not quite a local derby, but close enough to have that bit of rivalry as well. Ahowillan came out, they didn't impress in the first half. Fianna could have been out of sight. It was 9 points to 4 at half time. Fianna had 2 phenomenal goal chances in the first half, missed both of them, but would have been well worth a 2-9 to 4 point lead at half time. And whatever was said in the Ahowillan huddle at half time, they just came out in that championship quarter, that third quarter, and they just blew away Fianna. And Fianna, I think, were lucky to hold on for the draw in the end. Probably a fair result, though, on the balance of play, and it puts both teams into that quarter-final. So overall, they'll be happy with it. But Fianna needed to bounce back after that defeat to Mull, because the second half display there was poor. Again, second half drop-off this week as well for Fianna, but they're starting to learn those lessons. They didn't let Ahowillan run away with it this week. They managed to stop that, to stop the flow of the tide towards Ahowillan and get enough scores just to keep the scores level. And they get that point and passage to the quarterfinal. Much improved from Fianna this week.
Yeah, look at Fianna, I suppose the team that, well, from my point of view anyway, that I'm looking at, they would have had an amalgamation with Gortletteragh back in the day, winning minor championships. So we'd know the players fairly well, and I would have had some of them at county minor level years ago, from under 13 the whole way up to county minor. So very, very good players, dedicated, but it's all got to do with the Fianna teams back in the day and the parents that you look at, because you can see the line of parents and the players that you have now. And it has been a collective effort in Fianna, when a lot of other teams, if not all other teams in Leitrim, had taken their eye off the ball because they were strong at the time. And Fianna, they got their structures together. They got numbers of coaches, men and women, all in it together. And now they've built something that quite possibly in a number of years, like, if you can keep Ryan O'Rourke around and been able to play, that, if injury free and getting into a good rhythm, that I think quite possibly in 3 or 4 years' time, Fianna could have picked up a senior championship. This year, I don't think that they've just matured enough, to be honest, at this stage. It might be a longer, and maybe 1 or 2 more players that they might need coming up from the underage. But listen, it'd be I think every neutral around would love to see them, because they play great open football. It's real Gaelic football. It's not the defensive stuff. They open it up, good attacking football. That's what we like to see. I know, look, it would have been mentioned before, there's no point in playing attacking football if you're going to be hammered, or if you're going to be well bet. You have to clamp down. But look, if you don't throw caution to the wind, great things happen when you try something different. If you're doing the same as everybody else, it'll just be probably the thickest that'll win it. Sometimes.
Yeah, well, there was plenty of thickness in the game as well. A couple of little incidents. You don't like to see that in football, but I suppose we're getting to that cut and thrust of the knockout championship stages of the competition. So teams, it's beginning to look like it matters now, and I think that was missing maybe from some of the earlier group games when people could have had a kind of a get out of jail free card where if you lost one or two, you'd still be okay. In terms of the senior championship, that's probably it for the weekend. Some interesting games ahead. We'll talk about the fixtures later on in the programme. In terms of the intermediate championship, of course, full round of fixtures, 2 games Friday night, 2 games on Saturday. We start with the games on Friday night. Kiltubber and Knockmasheelan, 2 local rivalries here. And I tell you, there's absolutely no love lost between these 2 teams. They wanted it. I wasn't sure if it was a football match or an MMA fight at times, particularly in the second half. These 2 teams, neither of them wanted to lose to their neighbours. A great performance, particularly maybe from the 2 McQueenie lads up front for Kiltubber. They're only young, 1 year out of minor, 2 years out of minor, Danny and Barry. And I think Barry got 7 points, which was nearly half, or more than half his side's tally. 13 points to 110, the final score. 14 points to 110, a 1 point victory for Kiltubber. They'll be absolutely delighted with that. But for me, I think the 2 biggest moments of the game both came in injury time. Both goalkeepers pulled off phenomenal saves, and we don't really hear about goalkeepers winning games that often. But Noel Gill made a save maybe in the 5th or 6th minute of injury time that he had really no right to make. And for a man, I'm 40 and he was ahead of me in school, so you'd know Noel well over the years, and he's not a spring chicken, but I tell you, he reeled back the years in fine style. He kept that ball out of the back of the net. And at the other side, Kevin McQueenie did the exact same thing just moments earlier. Fergal Meehan came on as a sub. His first touch, straight through on goal, and smothered, just absolutely hoovered up by the goalkeeper for Knockmasheelan. So fair play to the 2 lads. They kept it competitive, kept their sides in it. And it was Noel's side, Kiltubber, that came out winning by a single point at the end of the game. Noel Gill, exciting game, came down to the wire, 1 point difference in the end. No small part to a fantastic save from yourself in the last couple of minutes. What's the mood like, first win of the championship season?
Yeah, it was good. It was a good win to get. We weren't sure what we were going to get out of Knockmasheelan this year. We hadn't played them in a good few years, so we knew we were going to get a tight derby game, and we got that. So we were lucky to get the win, and we made hard work of it. I thought we were 5 points up. They got a good goal and it gave them a bit of life, and they came back and they fought well. So they were a good team. They were unlucky in the first 2 games. They lost by a point, but yeah, do you know what? They might upset another 2 teams along the way, maybe.
Yeah, in terms of, I suppose, the goal, let's talk about that, the negatives first. Conceding that goal, it kind of came out of nothing, kind of a ball in, maybe your self-defender just kind of...
Yeah, we kind of both lost it. I was kind of tracking it across, and forward came kind of in at the back post. It's just it came between the both of us. But yeah, completely, I take responsibility for it. And I was talking to the young defender. It was his first season, so he was very apologetic about. But no, look at this completely. It's a goalie's mistake all over. You should command the small square, and I didn't do it in the time. But anyway. That
being said, you more than made up. Injury time, 2 or 3 minutes into extra time, and you pulled out all the stops literally to keep the ball out of the back of the net. That was some stave at the end. Reeling back the years. Maybe?
Oh yeah, I don't know about that, but I didn't see much of it anyway. But no, look, we knew they were going to throw everything in the kitchen sink. There was a point, 2 points in it, and they were just throwing everything at it. And they had one last shot, and lucky enough, I kind of followed across. I've seen a bit of space. I just dived into the space. I've got my head in front of it, so we kept it out. But look at it, on another day, it could have went in, and they would have won by a point. So look we'll take it all day long.
It was a day for the goalkeepers, of course. The other end, Kevin McQueenie, a couple of minutes earlier. Fergal Meehan almost scored with his first touch of the ball. It would have been some introduction as for a super sub. Fergal, it wasn't to be a great save at that end too.
Yeah, Fergal is more acquainted to the back line. I'd say he was caught up in half forward. Next thing he was in on top of the small square, just taking a shot. But yeah, look he went for it. The goalie made a very good save. Now he's a good lad. I know him from being neighbours up there. So yeah, no, he done well. He played well, and he's getting good coaching of another senior goalie as well, Martin McHugh.
We talked about on the commentary, we talked about the facilities here and the improvements over the last few years. You've been here a couple of seasons. You've noticed big changes yourself. What's it like playing in these kind of nice facilities in your own backyard?
Yeah, look, it's been great. Like, it's a testament to the club and the committee there that've been working hard for the last couple of years. Like, we have a great pitch now. It's a testament to the hard work and effort and fundraising that went in. Great club people, great club men and supporters as well that get behind it. But yeah, look, it's there for the youth that's coming through. And look, it's a lifetime job. It'll last forever.
In terms of the championship now, obviously 2 games in, 3 points on the board, pretty much guaranteed a spot in the quarterfinals at least. I suppose not the biggest achievement given the structure of the championship, but I suppose you'd be looking now to stretch on and maybe find one of those top 2 places in the group. Is that a realistic target?
Yeah, we'd hope to. Now the lads are kind of knuckling down and we're trying to put our best foot forward every game, every training session. So look, we get out, we put performances in, and we'll see where we end up. But yeah, look, we want to try and get to the top end of the group and see where we go, see who we draw in the next stage. But yeah, look, it's wide open. It's very competitive this year. You have 2 even sides, and it'll throw up some interesting games, I'd say, in the quarterfinals.
In terms of this year versus last, I suppose a couple of the early games last year were decided by a point against your favour. This year you seem to have just turned that little tide ever so slightly, but it's the difference between winning and losing. What's been the major difference? Is it been back in your own home ground? Is it a change in the dugout? I know Kieran McTague's been joined by Adrian Dockery this year as well. What's been the major difference for the club?
Adrian and Kieran are a good combination. They're a good team. Adrian's come in and he's brought a bit of different style of training, and it's to be honest, look, it's youth. We've got a couple of good young guys that come in and have knuckled down and really pushed the team on, and like old players like myself, and there's generals as Shane Foley and those lads are still there, but you know, it's all about the youth. You know, they've given it a really push on, and it's a bit of that. But we were a bit unlucky in a few games last year, losing by a point. The ball didn't bounce the right way for us and stuff like that, but you know, this year we just got a bit of luck and it went the right way, and we're building on that. Every game is a building. Of
course, Ballinaglera and Dromahair to come in the next 2 weekends. Have you much homework done on either of those 2 sides?
Not really. We haven't even looked at them, to be honest. We haven't. We've played Ballinaglera and Dromahair in the leagues in the last couple of years, so we kind of know what we're going to get. Tough games. They're physical. They're fast. So one of them is going to be at home. One of them is going to be away. So, like I say, yeah. Look, they'll be even enough. I don't see much between them. It'll be on the day. Whoever wants it bad enough will get the win.
Listen, thanks very much for chatting to us. Congratulations on a fine performance and a good first victory in the championship.
Cheers, Breif. Thank you.
That intermediate championship, it really is dog eat dog, isn't it?
Yeah, look, there's going to be some interesting games. The likes of Giltubber, even not Machine, they'll be disappointed, but to see an opportunity, like they've seen Anaduff against Gortletteragh. Anaduff are going to be trying to power on but it'll all take results and luck for them to get to another final, we'll say. Because if you're coming in, like you will know with Noel Gill, sure, he's about 25 years rubbing Putching and wintergreen all over himself. So he doesn't feel pain anymore. So that's why he's still playing, like, you know.
I don't want to know how you know that, to be honest, but that's a different story. We'll save that for the After Hours podcast later on. But yeah, Kiltubber, they'll be quite happy with that. And last year there was a trend where they get really, really close. The first 2 games, I know they ran to a point each time. I know Anaduff beat them by a point. Very unlucky, Kiltubber, to lose that game. This year, they're winning those games by the point, and it's a subtle difference, and it's really only inches in the difference. But having 3 points on the board rather than having 0 points on the board after 2 really tight games, it's a much better position for Kiltubber to be in, and they'll be happy out with that.
Yeah, look at, and even training during the week, you're looking forward that you're safe enough. The fear of and this is for any team, like the fear when you're in the situation of possible relegation, it's in your head. The bit of desperation. It's a thin line between desperation play and trying your best and throwing all at it. And some of that, maybe as you said about the MMA stuff, half of it could be got to do with individuals aren't fit enough physically or mentally, and they're under pressure and not controlling themselves. And the other side of it could be just that the rivalry is just that much that they're taking it so serious that they're not going to let anybody themselves be pushed around, you know. So look at it's all in the melting pot, because we don't have anybody down as favourites for the intermediate, you know. You could name. Yeah.
But nobody's put their hand up to be considered as favourites either. Auckland, of course, by virtue of that defeat, do end up bottom of the table. and because of head-to-head results and results elsewhere, they can't overtake Ballinaglera. Ballinaglera have already beaten them in this year's championship. So Aughtasheelin will be in that relegation playoff for the junior championship next year. The 4 teams in the group, Dromahair, Anaduff, Kilturbert and Ballinaglera, will be the 4 teams into the quarterfinal. All that remains to be seen is who will finish where, and at this point in time, it could be any team finishing in any position. It's tight at the top down there. 2 games left for most clubs. Pat's Dromahair are on 4 points. Anaduff and Kilturbert both on 3. All 3 of those teams with 2 games to play, while Ballinaglera, guaranteed to be in the quarterfinal, would like to take a win out of their final game and give themselves a slightly better draw, at least in theory, in the quarterfinal. But some interesting games there. Of course, Dromahair and Ballinaglera, they met on Friday night in Ballinaglera. A hot-tempered affair. I know it ended up with one lad, a couple of lads didn't finish the game within the regulation. I know there was players sent off, and some unsavoury moments again in that particular game. We're not going to get into it here, but I believe one person did end up with a broken jaw out of an incident in the game. So I know Ballinaglera posted something on their social media about it yesterday. So to Jamie McGrail, I hope you recover quickly and you're back on the playing pitches at some point in the future. Your own thoughts on that when it descends into those situations when maybe people on the sideline, just in the heat of the moment, make decisions that maybe they wouldn't do in ordinary circumstances, and it results in incidents where people can't go to work on Monday morning. Your thoughts on that kind of stuff? Without going in, we don't talk about specifics, but just the concept in general.
Well, look at it. I suppose it's up to the referee to get it into his report, and if there's an investigation that has to be done. Now, this is for any, not just that game, for any games. That there's sanctions given out. Like, a player should miss the rest of the championship if you for whatever your own reasons that you lash out and you do some quite serious damage to somebody. Like, you shouldn't be playing football for a long time again, and it should be highlighted, because we all go out to play football. We put in heavy tackles, but at the end of the day, everybody has to get up for work the next day. This is an amateur game, and I think that sometimes it's seen as, well, I'm in a game, I'm frustrated, I lash out at somebody, but if you've done it outside of a nightclub, it would cost you an awful lot of money. And I don't think that the GAA should be covering any of this, no matter who they are or what name they are. Whether they're even from inter-county footballers down. The rule book is there, and it needs to be hit, because if we do end up at any stage that we get a bit laxed, it's going to open up a can of worms that this is going to be happening, and you're not going to be able to pull it back. And there's one thing playing hard football, but you don't need to hit a fella a smack in the mouth when you have 2 shoulders on you and you haven't shouldered somebody in 5 years. Do you know what I mean? It is a physical game if we play it right and in the right way.
Yeah, I know we haven't spoken about this before the show started, but from what I believe from reports, it wasn't the player that was involved in the altercation. It was actually an official of one of the teams. But listen, these things happen, heat of the moment, on the side of a pitch. We just don't like seeing it in the game. It kind of ruins what was a lovely evening, weather-wise and atmosphere-wise across the grounds over the weekend. Now, we'll hear from Ballinaglera manager JP Kane, his second week in a row back on the show. He'll start to think we like him down there in Ballinaglera, but he's back with us to talk about his view on the game. Seamus Gallagher caught up with him on Friday evening.
I have with me here JP Kane, manager of the Ballinaglera team. JP, a disappointing result in the end. He had a good first half. We were 4 points to 3 up at half time, but really Dromahair were much the better team in the second half, and an easy win for them. You're disappointed with the overall performance.
Yeah, I suppose when you take it that way in the second half, yeah, but when I suppose I think it was 4-3 at half time, and 4-3, and we had missed. I think when the game we had done down the sheet there, we missed 4-8 in the whole game. You can't miss 4-8 in a championship, and we had 8 wides. We had 6 in the first half. And we had a goal chance in the first half, and instead of being 2 up or 1 up or 2 up at half time, we should have been 9-10. We should have the game sewn up, and it's a different ball game when we knew they were going to get their purple patch. They got in the third quarter, and they pushed on and they got their 5 or 6 scores. Well, when we had our purple patch, we didn't punish them. But look, the way I look at it is, last year was 2-22, 6 points. I think in the championship we're an awful lot closer. I think if we meet them again, I think we'll be even closer again. We held them to 3 points from play, 8 frees. So even though we were beaten, there's a lot of positives to take from the game, and I think we're in a good place. And I don't think too many teams would fancy playing us in a quarter final. Now that I know the Connacht have been beaten, we're in a quarter final, so that's what we're looking forward to now.
In Group 2 of the Intermediate Championship, it was a case of local rivals again doing battle. Over on the Cavan border, Carrigallen and Drumreilly met on Saturday evening in Carrigallen. 111 to 110, the final score in that particular clash. And I think Carrigallen, it hadn't been going particularly well for them. They had lost their opening game of the season fairly heavily to Havas, and losing one local derby is bad enough. You can't lose two, and they made sure to not let that happen on Saturday evening. A 1 point victory over Drumreilly. Carrigallen, I spoke to Andrew McManus off air earlier today, and he was relatively happy with the performance, delighted with the results. And I think that's pretty much all it comes down to when you get that local rivalries involved. You just want to win against anyone who's remotely from your neck of the woods, right?
Yeah, it's always it's the bragging rights for the next year. Well, sorry, not the next year. It could last for a lifetime, because there's always going to be somebody that will remind you of that fateful day back in August when we bet you, and you mightn't have even remembered it, and it's not related to the conversation you were having with anybody. So look, it is, and for Carrigallen to get the win, to have a good run, and they play a good running game of football. Like, Andrew McManus involved with them, so we all know him from years and years. Small, nippy, fast. It was done quick before he ever got a chance to get a hand in. So he brings that, to his management style. Drumreilly, maybe a few younger players coming on. They have some quality players, but still at that, more than a lot of other rural teams, the numbers game isn't there, and you still have some of the lads that would have played for Leitrim years ago still playing, and in every other parish they're retired 2 or 3 years. So look, it's kind of they're hard. That's hard now to continue it. They need to be getting the younger crew in, but I suppose the league is your time for that. Championship, you need to get the win, and you played the players you think that will get you there.
Well, that being said, Drumreilly is still top of the table. They're up there with Havas, both on 4 points. But if Drumreilly beat Havas in their final game, they will guarantee themselves top spot in the group. So, interesting time ahead. And I think we've got a case where Drumreilly and the likes of John McKeown and others who you soldiered with in the trenches in that full back line for Leitrim over the years, he might have something to say about your opinion on whether he should be playing or not. But he's still knocking them out there, and they'll take a bit of a knock from that defeat, but they'll be back, and Drumreilly never really know when they're beaten. So they're still top of that group, and of course guaranteed a place in that quarter-final draw in a couple of weeks' time. Bornacoola, of course, they hosted Drumkeeran over the weekend. Drumkeeran went down there as hot favourites, didn't have it all their own way, and relied on 2 late scores to make sure they got the win there, and it leaves Bornacoola in a must-win situation in their final clash against Carrigallen in 2 weeks' time. But to go back to the game at the weekend, 3-8 to 1-16 the final score in that game, and Seamus Mallon scored 1-4. He's been impressive through the season so far, obviously in with the county hurlers as well through the inter-county season, but there's plenty of talent in Bornacoola. They just maybe don't have the critical mass of numbers to spread that out even enough that the weakest player on the team, there's holes in the team, I think, is just what's happening. It's just not quite happening for them this year. It surprised everybody last year, but this year it's kind of playing out as people thought last year would, and they're really under pressure now. 1 game to go. They can get themselves out of that relegation clash with Auckland, but it's not looking great for Seamus Mallon's team at the moment.
Yeah, look, it is hard, and that's where if we look at it, it's a bit unusual. Like Bornacoola would have had at underage level with Gortletteragh when they've joined, at stages they had bigger numbers on the amalgamated team, but I don't know where they're going to. Do you know? In Gortletteragh, if you had 5 on the first 15 or 6, they seem to come through. There might be 1 drop off. I don't know where the players are going, because like you have enough numbers, even with amalgamations at underage level, you still have, we'll say, 10 each year, between 5 and 10 each year, and your senior team is made up of 15 years of teams. So even that you don't have the numbers, where are they gone from last year, the year before? You know, it's you just want to look into it, and if there's not jobs around to keep people there, there's not jobs. But then still, like,
well, to be fair, I didn't mean numbers as in actual physical numbers. I just meant the quality numbers of quality of players, because most clubs have bodies. Like you could show up for Gortletteragh, I could show up for a team. I'm not going to add anything to a team though, so I'm not a useful number, if that makes sense. So it's about lads who are going to make an impact in the game, and I just think maybe in places Bornacoola have just a little bit of weakness in certain areas, and it's just left them lacking. I know that through the centre of the pitch they're fairly strong, but just I think they're missing the likes of Shane Mallon, who's a big loss. Keane's younger brother. Obviously, he's playing rugby and hasn't been available for the team this year. I'm not sure if he's actually injured or not, but he did play last season, not playing this year. I know he's involved in the Leinster Academy as well. So there are certain things that he can't do. And I think a club the size of Bornacoola are going to miss somebody like that, particularly someone of Shane's quality. And if you have one or two of those missing, you're going to struggle.
Yeah, it's I suppose you can see it from some point, club's point of view, that if you create an all-rounder, that the chances are you could lose them. And I know it's a narrow-minded way of thinking of it, not given the opportunity, but it's great. I think it's great to see. And look, we have Rob Kearney coming back to play. All these boys will be coming back, so they will, when they have Lions Tour medals in their back pocket, you know. So
yeah, I heard some reports about Rob Kearney's performance at the weekend for Cooley. Mixed reports. I think the reaction, I can't remember the exact words, and I got sent a text message from a friend of mine who was at the game, and he said basically it was along the lines of that he was at the same time majestic in terms of how he looked in the jersey and on the pitch, but actually when it came to playing the game, maybe not the same transferable skills that have just clicked straight back in. He might need a couple of games to get himself match fit for the GAA, but he said he filled the jersey well at least, but unfortunately not to be for him on the night. Anyway, we're getting ourselves distracted by talking about rugby internationals. Let's hear what the two managers had to say after the game. Richard McTiernan of Drumkeeran and Seamus Mallon of Bornacoola.
I have with me here the successful manager, Richard McTiernan. Richard was touch and go for a long time there, a tough game, and he just came through in the end.
It was a tough game, Seamus, yeah. All credit to Bornacoola. They came out and they fought like absolute dogs, and we didn't expect anything less coming up here this evening, to be honest. As we played them probably 6 weeks ago in the league, there was nothing on the kick of a ball in it that day as well, so we are delighted to get out with the result. In fairness, the lads showed a bit of character.
Yeah, you know, about midway through the half, you were 5 points ahead and seemed to be coasting, and suddenly Bornacoola 2-2, I think they scored, they ended up ahead at half time, and you know, the whole way the second half they kept coming back, and in the end just 2 late points there, and a couple of the subs you brought on did well, so you were delighted in the end just to get there.
No, we're delighted, as I said to you, we're delighted to get out of here. We came here just to make sure that we got 2 points on the board, because the championship, it's a funny game. You never know when you're in it or when you're out of it. So we had only focused on trying to get the result here today. Probably, I suppose, we give away bad goals. There's no point trying to hide or cover up that either. There's a lot to work on going forward. But again, I suppose the last quarter, the lads, they showed courage and they showed a bit of character, and look, we got the win.
So you've Carrigallen at home next week, and I suppose they caused a little bit of a surprise this evening. I know it was a local derby, but they beat Drumreilly, previously unbeaten. That brings them back into it. So again, another huge game next week.
No, it's wide open, and that's the reality of it. And we have Carrigallen at home. It'll be nothing less than this evening or the week before with Drumreilly. There's only a kick of a ball between any team in this championship, so nobody's guaranteed anything. So look, we look forward to it, absolutely, and we'll train hard this week.
That's it. So we wish you well next week and in the rest of the championship, and we'll probably be talking to you again next week.
Lovely. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Richard.
Seamus.
Thank you. I have with me here Seamus Mallon, manager of the Bornacoola team. Seamus, tough luck. Great game of football. 2 evenly matched teams, and you know you stuck with Drumkeeran all the way, and just in the end 2 late points.
Yeah, we were down and we came back, and it was level there with time up, and God, we had a couple of opportunities there going forward, and we got caught in possession and we got a hand pass away. We'll be disappointed, but to be honest with you, we got a response after last week. We're not at the races against Drumreilly, so from that point of view it's positive, but unfortunately it's the third loss, and we're now relying on Drumkeeran to turn Carrigallen over next week for us to have any hope going into the final game against Carrigallen.
Yeah, that's you've the bye next week.
Yes.
And as you said, Drumkeeran playing Carrigallen. You'll be shouting for Drumkeeran next week, of course.
Well,
and it's down to the last game then. It's, you know,
Yeah.
if that result works out, it's yourselves and Carrigallen.
It is.
So
It is
it'll be a huge
indeed.
game if it goes that far.
Oh, it'll be a huge game. My old mate Andrew McManus is managing over there, so we've often spoke about it all year that might be the game. But they had a great win this evening, I believe, a 1-point victory over Drumreilly. So fair play to them. Their tails will be up, and I wouldn't be a bit surprised if they did turn Drumkeeran over. But we'll wait and see. We will obviously be hoping Drumkeeran can beat them to keep our chances of progressing alive.
And of course, you were without Damien Moran this evening, suspended for one game. You know, that could have been the difference between winning and losing, but
Should look at
he's not playing.
Damien is the last player here to represent Leitrim from Bornacoola, and he's a huge loss. He scored about 1-6 here against Havas, so he's a major loss. And Ronan Mulligan there, who normally one of our top forwards as well, just twisted his knee in about the first quarter, I think it was, so he was another loss. But look, it's more important the attitude they bring. The personnel doesn't matter, and the lads that went in, Brian Connery went in there for Ronan Mulligan, played a very good game. So look, you have to deal with these things. That's why we have a panel, and we will have Damien back the next day now. And look at, hopefully the game will be alive. And if it's not alive, we'll have to prepare for the following 2 weeks, whoever we meet in the relegation game.
So we wish you the best of luck in the next game. It'll be our last game in the group stages, and if it's there to be won on the day, we wish you the best of luck.
Thanks very much, Seamus.
All right, Seamus, thank you.
Of course, both men speaking to Seamus Gallagher after their game on Saturday evening. In terms of the other games played over the weekend in the men's competitions, the Collar Oil Junior B and C Championships started over the weekend, and in Group 1 of the Junior B Championship, Alan Gaels and Drumkeeran met in Drumshambo. The scoreline 1-10 to Alan Gaels, 4-6 to Drumkeeran. A fairly comfortable 5-point victory for Drumkeeran there as they made their way back up the long shore of Rock Allen with both of the points in the bag. In Group 2, Melvin Gaels and Fina played out a draw in Kinlaw, 12 points to Melvin Gaels, 2-6 to Fina St. Collins, while Shauna Heslin's 2-8, St. Mary's 3-14 in the Junior B Championship Group 3 clash. St. Mary's winning that by 3 points in Ballinaglera on Sunday afternoon. In the Junior C Championship, Dromahair 220, Kiltubbert 8 points. Fairly comprehensive win for Dromahair, and there's a club that really impressed me with the number of bodies they've got out for games this year. I've seen a couple of their games in the league and in the championship so far, and I've been really impressed with how they look in terms of the kit and all that stuff that people don't really put much value in, but I think is super important in terms of how players actually value themselves as well. So a good result for them there in that particular clash. Good to get the second team up and running, while Ballinaglera had a nice victory over Havas, 2-11 to 7 points, a healthy 10-point win there for Ballinaglera's second side against Havas's second side in the Junior C Championship. They'll obviously be back in action when those games kick off in a couple of weeks. We did have a full round of fixtures, the first round of fixtures in the senior and intermediate ladies competition at all. Do you follow this at all? I know Kildare Gaels will be your local side down there, Derek, but if you're not involved, sometimes it just passes by. Is there much awareness of what's going on with the girls down there?
No, to be some of the families that would be involved, we'll say the likes of Shane and Ward. But look, at the girls will be training a different night. It's unusual if when the senior or the first team, men's team, are training and the women, there seems to be a massive divide between the two. Maybe it's the same like with the GAA and the Ladies Gaelic Athletic Association. I don't know what it is. It's historical, and there doesn't seem to be much of a crossover in regards to support. There's the hardcore, we'll say, but there isn't the same even fundraising, anything like that. So you don't hear much unless you go looking for it. You don't really hear much about the ladies football, which is unfortunate. Now I don't know where the roots of it comes from, but maybe if they're a little bit tighter knit of an organisation, both sides coming a bit closer together, it would actually work out better for funding for the ladies. support and for recognition, that we know what's going on, you know.
Well, absolutely. Well, just to remind people, they are all in this book, so you can find out all about the women's game in the county as well. If you're not that familiar with it, check it out. And also the live commentaries that we've been doing here on finalwhistle.ie and Leitrim GAA Radio does cover the senior and intermediate ladies games as well. Very healthy listenership, so there is definitely an appetite out there for people. A couple of, well, I'd say over the course of the weekend, the 5 games we had the guts of maybe 700 or 800 people listen to those ladies' games over the weekend. So we're quite happy with that. I think it shows a genuine interest in the games and the appetite for a bit of information flowing around those games. But of course, those actual games themselves, I was in Kiltubbard this morning. Kiltubbard, a fine performance from them, but unfortunately not enough to keep Glencar Manor Hamilton at bay, and they edged it out by 2 goals in the end. A late penalty from Alva Clancy probably put a little bit of a gloss on the scoreline that didn't reflect the way the game actually played out. 1-10 to 3-10, the final score there in Kiltubbard. Over in Drumshanbo, we had St. Francis. They played Mohill, and they ran out winners in that particular game. 3-12 to 4-3, the final score. Another 6-point victory there. While in Ballinamore, a repeat of last year's semi-final, Ballinamore, Sean O'Heslin's and St. Joseph's, an 8-point victory there for Ballinamore, 3-8 to 9 points to give them all opening wins in the season.
I have with me Paul Martin here, manager of the successful St. Francis team. Well done, Paul, for a start. Good win the first game, but Mohill really put it up to you there.
Yeah, absolutely, Seamus. Mohill were very, very good, very well drilled. They obviously came with a game plan, and they frustrated us for a long time, so we just tried to remain patient. We could have got panicky, but thankfully we didn't. We were 7 points down at one stage, so we just reeled them back in slowly, and thankfully we came out the right side of it. But Mohill, all credit to them, they're gonna take a bit of beating this year now. To be fair to them, they'll give teams a good game as it goes along.
Yeah, they got a good start. They got, the first 2 scores were goals, and that goals kept them in the game. But you found yourselves 2 down at the break, but you had a great start to the second half. Goal and 2 points, and I know Mohill kept coming back at you, but in the end, I think he held them scoreless in the last quarter. And
did we? Okay. So. Yeah, we were very good. Like Dervla Vernon's the best forward in the county, in my opinion. So, or one of the certainly one of the best. So, and we had to take her very seriously, and the girls knuckled down to that task. They were very good, particularly in the second half. And we knew once we got ahead, Mohill would have to come out. They were very defensive in the first half. We knew they'd have to come out, and they did. And we kicked some great scores, I thought, towards the end. And we finished strong as well. We pushed up on their kickouts well, and a lot went right for us. We got our big scores at the right time. So we're just delighted to get 2 points on the board. But that's all it is. Just won the first game. That's it. We keep her lit now.
That's it. And I don't like mentioning players, but I have to say Eilish Cornian had a brilliant game there around the centre of the field today, and scored some magnificent points. Penalty.
Yeah,
she was all over. Commanding.
She's a great bit of stuff. Yeah, she's a huge player for us. Like we're missing a few big players there. Like Emer Gibbons broke her wrist in the league final, and Rosalind Kane put her shoulder out, and Mairead McCauley is out for the year as well. So, to have Eilish coming back there, we expect a lot of her because she always does a lot for us, and maybe we expect too much of her, but she continues to do it, and she's a great bit of stuff. But I thought some of the performance, I thought Edel O'Donnell was fantastic, and Niamh Moran did a great job back there, and the girls really stood up. Like, and Kerna leads from the front, and she's a huge player for us. Everybody knows that, so there's no point trying to play that down.
So look, it's good to get the first win. I know you're playing Manor Hamilton next.
Yep.
Doesn't get any easier.
No.
Look, the best of luck in the next round and in the championship.
Thanks, Seamus.
In terms of the intermediate championship, St. Bridget's, in their first return to the intermediate grade, they scored 5-11 to beat Drumkeeran's 1-10. Drumkeeran, of course, promoted last year by virtue of winning the junior championship in the county. And Leitrim Gaels, they had an unfortunate meeting with St. Mary's Kiltarragh, who put 7-18 past them, unfortunately. 2-4 for Leitrim Gaels, but a very, very healthy win for St. Mary's Kiltarragh, and probably puts them as one of the early favourites for that championship. But I'm sure St. Bridget's are going to have something to say about that. And of course, Dromahair in that grade as well. They promised to do some damage. That they're next up for Kiltarragh in 2 weeks' time. So no more games on the ladies' front for the next 2 weeks. We'll have a bit more of a focus on them next week. But nice to have them up and running. Next round of games for the ladies on the 12th of September. Of course, all those games thrown in at 11 a.m. In terms of the fixtures for next week, Derek, we might just run through them quickly and then we'll wrap up the show. But on Friday evening, we have the Connacht Senior Football Championship Group 2 clashes between St Mary's, Kiltard and Gortletteragh, and Leitrim Gaels and Glencar Manor Hamilton. These, of course, the deciding clashes between who's going to finish top, bottom, or wherever on the league table in Group 2. It's been tight. It's been fairly level pegging between these sides. There's been a couple of surprise results. Gortletteragh last night beating Leitrim Gaels, even Glencar Manor coming up and overturning a heavy defeat to St Mary's to beat Melvin Gaels the following week. It's just been topsy-turvy. Any team can beat anyone. Do you want to put your neck on the block and say how you think this is going to go? Of course, your focus would be on Gortletteragh in terms of what they can do against St Mary's.
Yeah, look, nobody wants to be playing in a relegation final or playoff or whatever you want to call it, because I suppose when you talk about a relegation final, finals are generally something to celebrate getting into. But if you're in a relegation final, you're not celebrating that terrible much that you're in it. So, look, there'll be good games at the weekend. Any of the teams that we'll say are through already, maybe they mightn't be as strong, or maybe they'll want to keep the momentum going. Like, I don't know, maybe from years ago, because there hasn't been as much football played in the past 2 years as there would have been. And players, a lot of them have got a fair rest. They're training differently. They're coming in fitter because they had to do it on their own. So if you want to keep the momentum going in either the intermediate, the senior, any of the junior championships, you go out to win every game. And this thing of, I'm not going to show my full hand. Now, I heard that at one stage from a manager, I'm not going to show my full hand, and they're in trouble. Because if they should have shown their full hand in the first game, because they lost that game and they're on the back foot. So you can be too cute for your own good sometimes, So you generally try to put out your best team, and the tactics on the field, all right. You can kind of trick about with them, like, if you want to, but it's getting, like, we know after the weekend, or very soon anyway, the parents for the quarterfinals, and that's where it gets into interesting, and that there'll be some mouth-watering games coming up that people will want to go to. So I'd urge people to get out and go, and even if you're at the game, tune in to finalwhistle.ie to get your commentary, because I've had people comment that they're the far side of the field listening to the commentary on the game, and maybe that's because they don't want to talk to the person beside them, maybe, but still, it's good.
They just want you in their ear. That's all that's wrong with them, Derek. They want your company. In terms of the games this weekend, of course, let's go through some of the permutations without bogging it down in too much detail. But effectively, the top place team in every group will play fourth place on the other side of the group, second place, third, and so on. With obviously the advantage being finish higher in the group, you get, in theory, a weaker opponent in the quarter-final. Mohill, odds on to be top of that group. The only team that can catch them is Shauna Heslands, and of course Mohill have beaten them already. So based on that, Mohill will be in top spot in Group 1 of the championship. Shauna Heslands, their season is complete, at least from the group stage point of view. 4 points. A win for Ahowil and Arfina would leapfrog Ballinaglera in that challenge. Allen Gaels will be fifth place on the table. You can get the league tables, you can get them on Final Whistle, you can also get them on Leitrim GAA, you can work out the permutations yourself. But essentially, we're probably looking at Mohill first, potentially Fina maybe second if games go to form, with Shauna Heslands followed by Ahowil in fourth place in that group. If I was a betting man, that's probably the combination I would expect. Would you disagree with that, Derek?
No, I think you're right. Look, you have Mohill every year have been bringing 2 to 3 new players onto their team, and this is probably what I'm going back to with the likes of the Bornacoola, just for an example. That I know that we're talking about numbers, but then that the standard of players coming through, but they have to be coached. They have to be coached right. They have to be wanting to play themselves. So the Mohill crew, they want to play. Like they've had possibly up in 50 at training when the COVID restrictions lifted, and they have quality footballers. Like we all know that. So any of the young fellas that are coming in, they'll play a challenge game the same way as they'll play a county final. they give it all. So like Mohill are the team to beat. Ballinaglera look fairly decent. Whether they'll be able to do it or not, they let a championship slip a number of years ago that I thought that they should have won or could have, but didn't. So like Mohill would be the favourites. Carrick, Ballinaglera. After that, I don't know.
Well, that's one half of the draw. Mohill, Sean Heston's at Hull and Fina, in whatever order they fall in. I'm not sure anybody wants to play against any of them in a Leitrim Senior Championship quarter-final, but that is the task that awaits the 4 teams coming out of the other side of the draw. We know 3 of them, St Mary's, Glencar Manor and Leitrim Gaels, will be in that draw on there's no draw. We know how it's going to formulate out, but those 3 will be in the quarter-final mix-ups. And then it's Gortletteragh or Melvin Gaels. At the moment, it's advantage Melvin Gaels, but Gortletteragh do have that clash with St Mary's to try and secure their spot in. If we go on form, you would have to bet against them, but you never bet against Gortletteragh, right?
Absolutely, or you'd be a brave person that would.
So where we are is Mary's are probably odds on to top that group. Manor and Leitrim Gaels, they go in there. A win for Leitrim Gaels would see them leapfrog Glencar Manor. Any other result leaves Glencar Manor in either first or second in the group, depending on what happens with the Gortletteragh St Mary's group. So all to play for. It's very much about getting through in the first instance, but who you're actually going to play then. And of course, it's an open draw for the semi-finals. So if you get through, there'll be an open draw done. It's usually done at the end of the final whistle on the last semi-final of the senior and intermediate stages. So we shall wait to see who that will be, but a couple of weeks down the line. In terms of the intermediate championship, then of course we have the 4th round of games. They all take place on Saturday evening, and we'll find out exactly who's going to progress through to the quarterfinals at this stage. Still a few little things to be decided. Usually it's just about where they want to finish in the actual groups, though. Auckland, as we know, bottom of the table. Bornacoola played 3 games. They have 1 game left against Carrigallen. Depending on how other results go, they could be in a winner-take-all clash on the last group games in 2 weeks' time. But at the moment, it looks like Bornacoola in a bit of bother at the bottom of the Group 2 table in the intermediate division. We still have a full round of fixtures to go after this weekend, so nothing will be set in stone. But clubs can really put themselves in the running for that spot in just a couple of weeks. Quarterfinals with a good performance this week. The fixtures just to make sure we have them right. St Pat's Dromahair play Kilturbert, Auckland versus Anaduff, Drumkeeran versus Carrigallen, and Drumreilly versus Havas. Another local derby. They seem to put everybody in that part of the country into that group. I'm surprised Gortletteragh weren't relegated just to put them in there and add an extra local dimension to the competition.
Don't want to hear about relegation, Breifne. I'm afraid I'm not going down that road.
when we have you, let's just talk about that for a second. We're about to finish up, and we've kind of got through the business of the show. The best luck to everyone who's gone in for that quarterfinal spot at the weekend. But in terms of Gortletteragh, they won the Intermediate Championship a month ago now, maybe 5 weeks ago now. And let's say hypothetically they don't manage to avoid that championship quarterfinal spot, and they get knocked out and they end up in that relegation playoff. Is it a bit of a sour taste having won the championship so long ago that in potentially 5 or 6 weeks down the line you could be relegated back to senior championship? And in theory, Anaduff, who lost that final, could go on to win the intermediate championship. And within 8 weeks of winning the intermediate championship, you've actually swapped position, and Gortletteragh preparing for the intermediate championship again, and Anaduff the same. Again, it's very hypothetical. In fact, in my opinion, it's very unlikely that either of those situations, that a perfect storm of the two situations together is likely to happen, but it could in theory happen.
I don't think it's that unlikely, to be honest with you, Breifne. Like when we looked at it, even I said it after, it was the week before, the week after the intermediate final, that it's great winning it. It's disappointing losing it, but like Anaduff could be within 6 or 8 weeks, they could have won an intermediate championship and we could be relegated from the senior. So, like, you know, I think both sets of teams, like, it's in their own hands. Like the intermediate is all to play for with the way that the games are going. Gortletteragh, you don't want to be going down to, I know Alan Gaels are in the relegation. They're still going to be hard bet. People that would say, well, Gortletteragh, they'll have the momentum going into the game. You're there for a reason, and maybe there are two different reasons why Gortletteragh or Alan Gales would be down there if that's the way it ends up. Maybe Alan Gales need to get the numbers in, try and get people. We need to mature the players that are there already. But look, they're adults. They know what's ahead of them. And if they could, like, it'd put the whole lot to bed if Gortletteragh go out and put in a performance against St. Mary's and to pull some sort of a result. And then, if that happens, I'll be delighted. But it'll be unfortunate for my old mate, James Phelan, in Melvin Gales. But I'd say the way he's looking at it is that they'll be watching that game tightly and they'll survive and they'll get into a quarter final. But I'd rather me be happy rather than James. And that's no disrespect whatsoever.
It's the nature of sport, isn't it? For someone to win, somebody else has to lose, unfortunately. And that's just the way it is. He'll be praying that you're upset on Saturday evening and you'll be praying the opposite. I think actually your game is Friday, but that's neither here nor there. Listen, as ever, it's a pleasure to have had your company for the last hour or so, Derek. Thank you very much for joining me. I know you have your fingers, toes, and whatever else you can crossed going into that game against St. Mary's on Friday. And from all in Gortletteragh, I wish everyone went into the weekend. It makes no difference to us who wins, but you do like to see the teams that play a bit of football progressing. So hopefully we'll see football win the winner this weekend. Derek, thanks very much for joining me. As ever, a pleasure having you.
Pleasure. Looking forward to be back again, Breifne. Thank you.